Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Ben Reimer, and I've had the enormous pleasure of working with these amazing humans all term through lessons and percussion ensemble and all the aspects, and I'm very grateful to Victoria Sparks, who's normally, as I'm sure you know, normally here running things, that she's let me work with them this term. So it's been wonderful. Anytime, especially over the, since the last few years of some tricky times, anytime we find ourselves in a space like this where we get to be together, play music, listen to music together, just be sort of entertained as a group, I think these are pretty important moments in time and really special. Of course, we want to, at the same time, acknowledge where we are here at the University of Manitoba, that the campus is located on the lands of the Anishinaabe, the Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and the Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. We respect the treaties that were made on these territories, and we acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past, and we dedicate ourselves to move forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. So we're in this amazing space, amazing people, and we have some pretty cool music for you. I'll just tell you a little bit about the next couple pieces, and I'll pop up every so often and tell you a little bit more. One thing I want to note in the program, again, you've probably been here before, you've gotten to know some of the players. We're all sad to not have one of our teammates here today playing with us, so we want to just give a shout out to Cassandra, who wasn't able to make it, and we've had amazing people step up and fill in some parts, but we want to wish her well. So you might see me playing in one, and then some different names, so just note that in the program. So the first piece we heard was obviously featuring tambourines, a very traditional, typical percussion instrument. What I sort of did with the program is I chose drums, mostly drums from very common things like tambourines to snare drums, drum kit, to less sort of familiar percussion instruments like the flower pot. But throughout all the music, I hope you're going to find a lot of different variations, a lot of color potentials, a lot of different ways of expressing ourselves, creating music, creating art with so many different ranges of percussion instruments. So the first one was actually pretty traditional in sort of an entertaining setup. The composer basically showcased the tambourine and all the different techniques that we work on, thumb rolls, playing it with our knee, playing it flip, doing rolls, all those sorts of things. So a relatively traditional piece. The next one we're going to be moving into is called Embers 2 by Alyssa Weinberg, and that's going to be over there on the snare drums. But if you look closely, you'll notice that the snare drums are actually upside down. I always say we're going to play the snares upside down, but that gets confusing because it sounds like we're Motley Crue and we're going to be, the players are not going to be upside down. But we're playing snare drums that are prepared, so there's things placed on the top of the head, and the snares that normally do the buzzing underneath, we're scraping them and doing things. So we're playing a traditional instrument, but in sort of an odd way. And a little bit about Alyssa Weinberg, the composer of this piece. She's known for using colors, textures, gestures to channel her music. She's fascinated with perception and loves to play with form, subverting expectations to create surreal scenarios. So just keep that in mind when you're listening to that. And then we'll move straight from the quartet of Embers 2 to a trio over here, and that's Dark Passenger, and that one's by Andy Harnsberger. Interesting thing to listen for in the trio is you're going to hear what's called composite rhythms being played by all three players. So basically, you're hearing pretty complex rhythms, but each one of the players has one part of making the overall larger rhythm happen. So you might be hearing a running pattern of 16th notes, but each one of them is maybe only playing one or two of those, and they blend together. So it's very tricky, a lot of choreography, I would say. Yeah, so we're going to move on to those two pieces, Embers 2 and then Dark Passenger, and then I'll come back and talk a little bit more. Also, we're not offended if something's loud and you need to cover your ears. This is a loud instrument, and we have earplugs for ourselves, so do what you need to do. The next piece is quite quiet, so it'll be okay. So shall we? I'm going to join my team, and we'll play for you. say one quick note about the piece. The composer has mentioned in the program notes that the original concept was for it to be filmed overhead. I think it was maybe during COVID or something, but it was meant for a video. So at the initial phase, it might feel like you're not going to see a lot, but they move. So you get a different angle in a little bit, so don't worry. But yeah, you can kind of imagine what's happening and the patterns that are happening on the tops. Yeah, just so you know. All right. Everybody doing good so far? Enjoying it? Good, good, good. So we're moving on to sort of the second half. We're going to play another piece for you right here in front. And it would be probably one of the most, I'm getting my order right, yeah. probably one of the most iconic pieces for percussion that's ever been written. It's by composer Steve Reich, and it's called Music for Pieces of Wood. And he likes, in his notes in the score, he talks about how when he wrote this piece, he was writing for the smallest instrument he'd ever written for, but it also turned out to be the loudest piece he'd ever written. Because what he did was he used the clave, so it's music for pieces of wood, because the clave, as you'll see, are two pieces of wood that we hit together. They've been specifically tuned, so we've shaved them and carved them to create a specific pitch so that when they're all together, they sound the way that he specified. And basically the concept for the piece, it's embedded in minimalist composition style, and we have a rhythmic structure that is based entirely on process and build-ups. So the overall rhythm that's the theme of the piece that he's used in many, many other pieces is basically that structure. But we play it it starts in 6/4, then we're in 4/4, and then we're in 3/4. And you'll see we just basically build one note at a time for each player. That's my explanation there. And then we'll go into the piece you see in the middle with the flower pots, and that's called Sequoia. And so we're going again sort of from a pretty traditional percussion instrument, the clave, to lesser traditional instruments as flower pots, which actually there are a lot of pieces for flower pots in our repertoire. It is a pretty common instrument. It's not that weird for us anymore. But so that one, the Sequoia, is by Yaz Lancaster. This is a composer that I along with the Ember 2, were recent discoveries for me, and I wanted to have a program that featured some sort of classic composers with some sort of new discoveries, some younger composers, younger like late 80s born, kind of younger. That's young for me. So Yaz works as a performer, a composer, a poet, and a collaborator with a focus on LGBTQ, DIY, like do-it-yourself, and liberatory frameworks. They utilize fragmentation and collage to explore poetics, natural phenomena, and politics of liberation and identity. Sequoia is the piece that they've written is a reflection on the endangerment of the redwood forest, and in general sort of look on the habitat losses from fires, logging, air pollution, that sort of thing. So it's a really beautiful, quiet, and kind of have a heavy piece. So we're going to start with a classic, go to something a little new, and then I'll come back and talk more. Let's do this. As I said, this one can be a little loud, so again, no hard feelings. Oh, we're in mine. Okay, and now for something a little bit different. Yeah, we're on to the last tune of the afternoon. And again, before we do this, I want to say, and it's nice to see Tori over there, how thankful I am and how really lucky I felt this whole term to be working with these amazing players. And I don't know if you noticed or if it occurred to you much how little I've actually been conducting this whole afternoon. And that's really an indication of their own just like level of playing, of ensemble work, of like professionalism. The fact that we had a lot of times in the rehearsals, we would have maybe 3 or 4 pieces being rehearsed at the same time in different rooms, and I might be with one, and then sometimes that works, and a lot of times that doesn't. It takes like a really unique set of individuals that are like really serious. So it's been fantastic seeing them working together and learning from each other and giving each other advice. And I mean, we did that a lot in master classes and stuff too, just listening to each other and less listening to me because you get tired of, the teachers up there all the time. So, so it's been absolutely amazing. Excuse me, I'm getting all emotional. Now we're going to end with a bang. This is one of my favorite percussion ensemble pieces, so I had to program it. It's called Bonham by Christopher Rouse, and John Bonham, who it's named after, was the drummer from Led Zeppelin, known as the Beast and various other names for his massive playing, just huge hitting, huge drums, very bombastic. One of the earlier rock drummers to get a full solo on a regular studio album. On the Led Zeppelin's second album, there's a whole track that's just Bonham soloing, and he would carry on to do various sort of solos in different albums as well. So this track particularly starts and uses the groove from When the Levee Breaks, which is a very iconic drum beat that has gone on to be sampled by hip-hop artists and in so many different contexts. And it's one of those cool moments where the drum kit becomes, in popular culture, is more than just a timekeeper. And this actually, it happens a lot. Something I think about a lot is how much the drum kit is more than just time in a lot of pop music. It becomes an iconic moment. It becomes as known as the melody. It's probably more known than the melody. When you hear that drum beat, you know exactly what it is. You know who the player is, and you know what the band is in the song. So that's what Christopher Rouse is sort of celebrating, is the drumming of John Bonham and the kind of rock style. So he takes that and then puts on incredibly complicated percussion parts around it. So Brooke's going to be rocking out for us on kit. And if you're really enthusiastic at the end of this one, if you still have the energy and we feel it back, we have maybe one more for you after this. But we need to feel that energy. So here we are. This is John Bonham. No, it's not. It's just called Bonham by Christopher Rouse. safe. Thanks for coming.